Hello everyone and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. It's time to look back on one of the great sporting events of the year, the Cheltenham Festival, whether it lived up to that or not. We will ask Steve Ryder and Donn McClean, my two guests today, exactly their sentiments. Let's deal with that first of all. At the top of our show, your overall impression of this year's Cheltenham Festival, Donn.
Look, it's Cheltenham, Rishi. It's brilliant. The quality of racing. It's the meeting into which the whole season funnels. I know there was a few negatives about the meeting this year. Attendance on the Wednesday, for starters. I was out and about on the Wednesday. I wasn't on air on Wednesday, and you noticed it. You know, you kind of felt that it just wasn't the same. I guess the volume, the fullness of atmosphere wasn't there on the Wednesday. I know Gold Cup Day was better, but look, I know Willie Mullins dominated. Definitely the early part of the week, there were brilliant moments in it. His 100th winner, and some fantastic equine and human performances as well throughout the week. So for me, I look, you know, it's a Cheltenham Festival. It's a brilliant meeting. So I enjoyed it, but I heard the negatives and understand some of the negatives as well.
Steve, what was your takeaway?
That you're never going to have a bad Cheltenham Festival. Like, you're always going to have brilliant performances to discuss and horses that will blow you away. I thought Wednesday was slightly unlucky, the fact that you did have three very short price favourites and the cross country being abandoned. Yeah. I think it did work against the course. But I thought there were some good stories, some nice winners for collections, and yeah, some smart horses going forward.
And no doubt, between Donn, Steve, myself, we may have one or two suggestions for what's to come in 2025 at the Cheltenham Festival. But let's have a look back at the best of the action from this year. And we start on Tuesday with the Champion Hurdle and State Man's professional performance. But in terms of his overall achievements, where does arguably the most glamorous of his Grade 1 victories rank?
Yeah, look, obviously no Constitution Hill. So it was his race to lose. Like, to me, he was nearly a bigger certainty without Constitution Hill than Constitution Hill would have been with Slade, or with him in the race, with Stateman in the race. I thought he did it well. The pace wasn't fast, and maybe that didn't allow him be as impressive as he could have been. Fundamentally, I think it's great that he's got a Champion Hurdle win on the board. Like, he's such a fantastic horse, State Man, and I think he's a horse who doesn't probably get the recognition that he deserves, and probably not even still after winning a Champion Hurdle. Like, his only defeat when he stood up since he's joined Willie Mullins was when he was second in the Champion Hurdle last year behind Constitution Hill. And he's such a straightforward horse. When they left him alone at Punchestown last year and let him lead, they just played into his hands, Paul Town, and just settled him where he wanted to settle him. And this time, look, Irish Point is probably, you know, he's a very, very good horse, and he ran him. He was the one who got to him, and the two of them pulled clear. Look, he wasn't as impressive as his odds and maybe most people, including me, expected him to be, but and I was glad that he got the job done. I
guess one of the hard points to weigh up, and Steve, you touched on it a number of times before, Cheltenham. You mentioned about State Man at Cheltenham. I think Willie Mullins was pretty clear afterwards he's not quite at his best. You put Lucia, who ran third, her official rating is 140. What were your thoughts on the quality of the Champion Hurdle?
I felt vindicated by my argument around State Man that I raised the possibility that Cheltenham might not be his track. And actually to hear Willie Mullins say it afterwards made me feel quite good. I think Paul Townend just simply rode the race to beat Irish Point. It was very much a two-horse race. And I thought Jack Kennedy actually rode quite a good race. He kind of tried to get Paul Townend in a bit of a gap up the inside, and Paul went, no, I'm riding for a turn of foot, I'll just come round you. His 9th Grade 1 win. Interestingly, like, Willie Mullins hasn't won this since Annie Power in 2016, so there would have been a bit of pressure on the yard to obviously land this one at the prices as well. Some of the beaten horses, I think they're all kind of took a keen hold. The likes of Not So Sleepy, Colonel Mustard, Zarrett the Brave, Lucia, all took a keen hold in the early stages. But yeah, I thought Paul Townend did what he needed to on State Man, and it's not going to be a Champion Hurdle that you're going to rewatch a lot of times, I don't think.
No, I think we were talking about the race afterwards. A lot of people saying you probably remember the horse, not so much the race. And we'll leave the champion hurdle discussion for 2025 till after we've spoken about our next race in review. And we'll go to Lossiemouth's win in the mares hurdle. Obviously, one or two people, myself included, thought the trip might have been a big question mark for her. But she looked as good over 2.5 as she was over 2.
Yeah, she did, and we touched on it before. She settled a lot better in that international hurdle than what she did in the Triumph, and this was the same again. Protektorat could ride her exactly how she wanted to. Rode her wide out of any danger, cruised up and winged the last and stretched clear. You kind of then thought afterwards of what she would have done against State Man, but I thought it was a really good performance. I thought Rachel chose right on Tell Me Something Girl. She obviously had a choice of the 3 Henry de Bromhead mares. They all ran brilliant races in behind, but she's just different class, isn't she?
Yeah, there are a couple of performances in behind that I really liked, particularly Lantry Lady. I think she's one to keep an eye on. It was only her 3rd run. But Lossiemouth in isolation, there's no point talking about whether that was the right race for her this year or not. But looking at the future, let's talk about her in relation to State Man as a champion hurdle horse next year.
Like she's only a 5-year-old, and we know how 4 5-year-olds struggle. Willie Mullins left her off in the early part of the season deliberately because for that very reason. He said maybe if we, train her for the spring, then she'll be stronger and older and therefore can have a good end of season, and that's turning out to be the case, as often the case. So it's something that Willie Mullins says. But like her international hurdle win, really good. It's 2.5 miles. I was with Steve. I did worry about her stamina for 2.5 miles, but yeah, look, she stayed it. She showed that turn of foot. Her lengths gain jumping on Race IQ was 7.5 lengths, which was, that tells you her jumping was very, very good. And as a 6-year-old, please God, next season in a champion hurdle, getting the mare's allowance, she might even be better as a 6-year-old than as a 5-year-old this year. She'd be a potent force in a champion hurdle, I'd say, yeah.
Okay, right now, on this very day that we're doing it, probably not going to change too much when you see this eventually. Constitution Hill is the 7-4 favourite for next year's champion hurdle. State Man 4-1, Lossiemouth 5-1 with Bet365. 10-1 Ballyburn. Don't know where he's going to go, but Willie Mullins immediately said after he won that he felt like a champion hurdle horse to him. How would you play the champion hurdle right now, Steve, for next year?
I'd back State Man. I think he has the one with the least question marks. I'm a bit of a cynic. I think Lossiemouth.
He's not as good at Cheltenham, though.
He's still 4-1. He's a bit better than 2-5. It's all about the price, Rishi.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting how they campaign the horses next season, if they do think that they have 3 champion hurdle horses, because some of them are going to get beaten, and if Lossiemouth loses that air of invincibility that she currently probably has, that mares will look a very attractive option, and the 5-2 for the mares will look a very attractive price.
All right. If you had to play something,
I think the 10-1 of Ballyburn is very interesting because Willie Mullins did mention Donn Run, didn't he?
Yeah.
Donn Run, and look, it's a massive ask. There's a reason why only one horse in history has ever won a champion hurdle and a Gold Cup. The different attributes that are required to win both races, but Ballyburn. He's a chaser in waiting, but just if you wait another season and give him a chance at a champion hurdle, like I know we're coming on to him now, but he was so good. 10-1 about him for a champion hurdle. If that was his target, I think that would be interesting.
It would be interesting. And on that point about Willie Mullins talking about Ballyburn doing a Dawn Run, because Lossiemouth stayed so well in the... I thought, why couldn't Lossiemouth do a Dawn Run and win the champion hurdle and win a Gold Cup? She looks so good. I don't think... Ruby Walsh was adamant she was going to stay, and actually watching her through the race, she's an easy winner over 2.5 miles in that sort of ground, so who knows. Anyway, those are the 2 races from Tuesday, the 2 championship races anyway. Let's talk about Wednesday's championship race, and that of course was the Champion Chase itself. Who would have thought at the start of the season that neither El Fabiolo, John Bon, or indeed Edwardstone would end up playing a part from the last to the finish line, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, El Fabiolo's joined the likes of Duvan and Defi Desoy to be beaten at very short odds in this race. I bet they wish they'd run John Bon now, didn't they? Which is obviously a big talking point for the week, is Nicky Henderson pulling the horses. Fair enough if they had a dirty scope, but I do get the feeling as if they will have pulled out horses who will have scoped absolutely fine and they were just worried about running them. So I imagine, that they wish they'd have ran him. I thought Rachel Blackmore was brilliant on Captain Guinness on the winner. Was actually alongside El Fabiolo. It's probably his good jump which actually put El Fabiolo under a bit of pressure. It wasn't the first mistake of the race. He wasn't very fluent at the first or the third. So you did kind of see it coming. And then as soon as El Fabiolo was out of the race, she made a move up on the outside, made sure to not give Edward Stone that much rope at the head of affairs, and looked in control, kind of idled a bit up the finish. I just hope that Henry de Bromhead now knows not to run him at Leopardstown. He's 0 from 5 there, but obviously his record at Cheltenham was absolutely brilliant. He was obviously brought down when travelling well in the Supreme. He then finished 3rd in the Arkle behind Shiskin, finished 2nd behind Energumene in the Champion Chase, and now has won one. So his Cheltenham form is fantastic in comparison to his form elsewhere.
And Henry de Bromhead's form in the Champion Chase is quite extraordinary, including with horses that aren't as, I don't know, sexy or with quite the profile of some of the Champion Chase winners that we've seen over the years.
Yeah, no, his record in 2 mile chases is just brilliant. The Arkle as well in the Champion Chase. And I think he starts off, this is a 2 mile chaser until we find out otherwise. But no, look, I fully agree with Steve. Like, Rachel was brilliant. Like, it was a fast run race. Edwardstone's had a fast pace. The finishing speed percentage is 99.6, below 100%. I think it was the only race, it was the slowest finish, I think, the only race that dipped below 100% for the week. And like, you know, she could have got mugged in the end by Gentleman de May, just staying on, but she rode her race for Captain Guinness to win it. It's great that he's got his that's his first Grade 1 win. Now, I know we know John Bon and El Fabiolo made that mistake, but he's won a Champion Chase. He's a Champion Chase winner, which is great. And yeah, like El Fabiolo, going into the race, I thought he'll probably make a mistake or two, but it doesn't matter because he'll just shrug it off and kick on like he always does. And the hallmark of El Fabiolo for me was when he did make a mistake, he jumped the next fence well. It didn't seem to affect his confidence, but it's just such a bad mistake that he made at the fence. It's gone away from the stands. Yeah, but no, brilliant for Captain Guinness.
There were 1 or 2 people who suggested, or asked the question anyway, if Paul Tannen had persevered, could El Fabiolo have come back in the race? 1 or 2 experts said he could have done, but the danger that you take in bringing a horse back into the race after a mistake like that, if something else goes wrong, it's too much of a risk.
And I'm just reading as well that he's in a race against time to get back for Punchestown, so obviously he's a bit stiff and sore afterwards. So
the right decision.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, Ruby persevered on Douvan, didn't he? I mean, Douvan didn't make a mistake. He was just wasn't the same horse that day, and Ruby persevered on a 2-9 favourite and finished 5th or 6th, and then we know what's happened to him.
Well, I mean, you know, he fell off Courtauld Star and jumped back on. Nearly got beaten. He's got history, Ruby. I'm not listening to this, are you? Let's talk about what we saw on Thursday, the Ryanair and the Stayers Hurdle, obviously the 2 races. Let's deal first of all with the Stayers Hurdle and Teahupoo. A majestic performance, I thought. Really stamped his authority, Don, at the top of the division.
Yeah, for me, this was like Gordon Elliott said after he won the Hatton's Grace Hurdle, we're going to go straight to the Stayers Hurdle. Gary O'Brien interviewed him on Racing TV, and Gary had to do a double take. Really, you go straight to the Stayers Hurdle because of all the races in between. But I suppose they had, Rob Corr and Gordon had the Irish Point to go and win the Christmas Hurdle at Leopardstown, which would have been the next stepping stone for Teahupoo. But he's such a good horse when he's fresh. He was 8 for 8 going into the race after a break of 50 days or more. Now he's 9 for 9. And yeah, like he was vastly superior, wasn't he? He made a mistake at the second last, which didn't help, but and he was probably in front for a bit earlier than Jack wanted, because he said that Florian Porter, he just wanted to make sure that Keith Dunne didn't get too far away from him, and then once he gave him a squeeze, Teahupoo suddenly picked up, and he's there too early. But no, he was vastly superior to all his rivals. He was at close up 3rd last year. He's a 7-year-old this year, and yeah, he's the type of horse you can go see winning another one or maybe another 2.
Yeah. Florian Porter ran really well in defeat. Obviously, we bade farewell to Paisley Park at the end of his career, Steve.
Yeah, obviously a fantastic horse, and just wasn't quite up to that standard. There was a few that disappointed. Crambo probably being the unexposed progressive one coming from kind of handicap company was quite disappointing. Obviously, it wasn't the best week for Fergal O'Brien. Home by the Lead ran a lot better in first-time blinkers. They definitely helped him. I loved the run of Florian Porter. Obviously, I was a big fan of him. Obviously, coming into this race, thought Keith Donahue was brilliant on him. Actually settled, didn't need to lead. Let Patrick lead on Asterion Phalange for a couple of hurdles, and then took it up. Did the old trick of stacking them up before the turn, and just got beaten by a better horse on the day. But it was nice to see him return to a bit of form, because I'm not sure he was completely in love with chasing. I just thought Jack Kennedy was brilliant. Just keep him out of trouble, keep him on the outside. I think he made a slight mistake at the second last, but yeah, there was never going to be anything that would get him beat. Obviously, the conditions are big for him, so anyone that kind of wants an Ante-Post bet him, he's 4-1 with Bet365 for the Stayers next year. I know Gordon Elliott isn't of the same opinion, but I do think ground is important to him. If you just look at his form on soft and heavy ground in comparison to on better ground, it is chalk and cheese. So yeah, you are betting on the weather for 360 days.
The Ryanair Chase produced a terrific finish. Protektorat in front, Envoy Allen cruises up. I think he looks like he's going to go and win it. Rachel Blackmore afterwards said, it looked like I had more in hand than I actually did.
The race went perfectly for Harry Skelton. I think if he'd dreamt about that the night before, a strong pace with Ahoy Senor and Stage Star, him settled in. And Protektorat has always been a strong traveller. But the interview afterwards saying, I was pretty much flat out, which helped him settle, was exactly that. It was aided by Ahoy Senor making a mistake at the third last. He jumped slightly right-handed and Harry Skelton was straight in. Yeah. And this festival was Harry Skelton's kind of coming of age of waiting. Just get on their coattails and wait, as opposed to really committing for home, which he has been guilty of in the last few seasons, I feel. But yeah, I thought it was really good from Connections to drop him back to the Ryanair Chase, because he'd been beaten in 2 Gold Cups, and yeah, a strongly ran Ryanair was right up his street.
I mean, I pay tribute, obviously, well done to the Skeltons. They had an incredible, we'll talk more about them, incredible week at Cheltenham. But Envoy Allen, to be a 3-time winner at the festival, obviously he came down that 1 year, 3rd in the Champion Chase, 2nd. Incredible record, incredible durability for a horse that has had questions against him at some points in his career.
Yeah, I know. Look, brilliant for him to come back and go as close as he did. I thought he was going to win when Rachel took him to the outside, and yeah, I thought like it was a carbon copy of last year in ways, wasn't it? She gave him the almost a similar, an identical ride, took him to the outside. I thought he was going to pick up, and maybe the ground just got to him. Maybe just the ease in the ground wasn't to his liking, and Protektorat obviously stays, he stays that trip really, really well. It's a bit like one man, isn't it? Like running in 2 Gold Cups and not staying and then going and win the Champion Chase as a 10-year-old. Protektorat's only 9, I think, the same colours, John Hale's colours. But yeah, look, Protektorat did, like, he was very good. The time was fast as well. I think it was 7 seconds faster than Shake 'Em Up Harry in the plate. But yeah, and like again, the patience of the trainer and Connections of Cheveley Park to leave him off since Dan Royal in November and bring him here, or bring him to Cheltenham, a fresh horse, and he ran a massive race. Like, he's 10. Alberta's run as the last 10-year-old to win a Ryanair Chase, so when he won his 2nd, so it's not easily done for an older horse. He nearly did it, but no, Protektorat, like, that's his game now. We know for sure, isn't it? A strongly run race at a stiff track over an intermediate trip. That suits him really well.
Well, I think your point about John Hales' colours is probably most pertinent, because Dan Skelton said pretty much there for everyone to see after the race. They've been trying to make him a Gold Cup horse for the Connections. That John Hales in particular has always wanted to win the Gold Cup. That's been his race. I mean, he may have another Gold Cup contender who's much younger with the Paul Nicholls team, I think, that they believe might be a Gold Cup horse one day. But that's been the plan all along. That's why they've sort of given it that commitment. But he hasn't been a Gold Cup horse, and finally coming back to the Ryanair. Interesting, he's 8-1 for the Ryanair next year. Yeah,
just a word of warning for next season. Like, obviously, the UK Grade 1 chases have had small fields for the past few years, and I do think that strong pace was actually really important to him. And if you're going to be backing him at short odds next season in 5-6 runner 3-mile chases, I do think he's probably going to come unstuck.
Yeah, that's a very good point. He might be an interesting horse for something like the King George around Kempton. Anyway, that's the Ryanair Chase. We've spoken about all the big races of the week so far, but we saved the best till last in this particular segment, and that is what I think was an imperious performance from the reigning champ in the Gold Cup. Galopin Des Champs, I thought was just majestic. He had the horses that we thought might be dangers. Jerry Colombe, L'Empresse, Korat Rambler, all come to him, but actually his superiority was so strong.
He was brilliant, Rishi. It was a wee bit different to last year. Like last year, Paul Townend rode him patiently in behind and maybe a bit further back than he had intended initially, but this year he's been more aggressive on him, and that seems to suit him. He stays the trip well. The soft ground is no issue to him, and I know he had the issue with the loose horse, but and in fairness, Jerry Colombe ran a massive race, but I thought that Galopin Des Champs probably won with a wee bit in hand. He seemed to be, like, his jump at the last, that suggested to me that he was a horse who had a little bit of energy left. And no, he was great. And it's not easily done. 2 Gold Cups, Albin Photo and Best Mate, they're the only 2 who have done it since Liscargo. In a row, yeah,
absolutely.
And he wasn't campaigns, like, it wasn't just one run in the Savills Chase at Tremor on New Year's Day and straight back to Cheltenham. He ran in the Punches on Gold Cup at the end of last season. He ran in the John Durkin. He ran in the Savills, won that. He won the Irish Gold Cup and on again to Cheltenham. So no, it was great to see. It was a big performance.
Yeah, I thought he was majestic, and I think that performance sort of elevates him to talk about him in the same breath as the likes of a Denman or a Corto Star, a Best Mate, etc.
Definitely, and he was such a good winner for the 100th Gold Cup. Like, you always wanted a good winner to then go down in the history books. And like Don said, it's great that he's ran a lot of times. The whole one run straight to the festival for these elite racehorses isn't what you want. You want to be able to see them. And I thought it was fantastic this season that they did take on the Irish Gold Cup after the Savills. I thought it was a fab bit of training and brilliant from the horse. It was obviously a shame to lose Fast or Slow. I've watched it a few times. Like, I still can't really spot.
He's kind of obscured, isn't he, from the camera? Because I was like, I backed him, and I actually took my eye off him looking back in the field, and then I heard that he's gone. So yeah, it was a strange one, all right. And we won't know.
Correct Ramble obviously ran a good race to finish third. He's plenty short enough now for the Grand National after that. Like, he had a proper test and was a tired horse afterwards. I think he's around 6-1 for the Grand National. That seems very short after that. It's a bit different running in an Ultima, hacking round,
I agree.
as opposed to, he was flat out for that whole of the Gold Cup. It was him and Nassalam that were off the bridle towards the back.
Yeah, and he didn't finish off his race strongly either up the hill.
He maxed out, didn't he?
Yeah. So I agree.
Just on the points you both made about Galopin Des Champs and his proper season, he's had a few races. I enjoyed Willie Mullins' occasional feisty comments through the week. When asked about whether or not he'd be keen for State Man and Constitution to take each other on at Punchestown, he said, well, to win a champion hurdle, you've got to turn up, and we turned up. I mean, to be fair, he was utter gentleman the day after when he realised that, obviously the Henderson stable were going through a tough time, and he said, he felt for them. I quite like. It's entertaining, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. And it's always slightly tongue in cheek. Like, behind the scenes, he is going to be the most gentleman
and gracious.
Yeah, of course he is.
Yeah. And with Galopin Des Champs, like, what I think. One of the reasons why we've seen him one extra time this season is because they moved the John Durkin Chase. Normally it's in mid-December, kind of early to mid-December. That's too close to Christmas, definitely for Willie Mullins to run in there and then run him at Christmas. But they moved the John Durkin Chase back. They put the Morgana Hurdle and the John Durkin Chase together for one meeting, which is brilliant. They did the same with Navan. And now there's enough time, and it's proven it, there's enough time to go from there to Christmas, to the Dublin Racing Festival, to Cheltenham. And, 4 or 5 weeks between each race, and it works out perfectly,
Should we just have a little chat about the Gold Cup for next year?
While you're loading that, can I just say, I think we have 2 top-class jockeys over in Ireland with Paul Townend and Jack Kennedy, and this was another one where race riding was really important because Paul Townend kind of used Fast or Slow as a loose horse to kind of keep Jack Kennedy in on Jerry Colomb.
Yeah.
And it's a similar sort of scenario to what happened in the Champion Hurdle with Jack trying to kind of make Paul go round him. And I think you've just got 2 brilliant jockeys that are going to be against each other for the next, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, and there could be a good head-to-head now between them between now and the end of the season. It's it could be a good battle the whole way to the end.
I won't go into massive detail of all the horses available for the Gold Cup, but Galopin Des Champs 5-2, and he is by far the best of his division.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an attractive price or is it not?
It's the good thing around Gold Cups is the second season chasers are always exciting. So behind him in the market, the Factor Files, Ile Francais, Grey Dawning, Corbett's Cross, you've got all of those that are going to step up into that open company next season. Like,
he hasn't even mentioned his favourite horse in that list yet, which we'll no doubt come to.
I'll mention him as well.
I know bet you both will. Okay, so that's a look at the championship races from the festival. Let's talk about some of the young hurdlers. The Supreme was won, I thought, in terrific style by Slade Steele. When Mythical Power came to challenge, it looked like the race was over, but what Slade Steele did from that moment onto the line was almost as impressive as anything else in the race.
No, it really was. And again, watching it live, I thought Mythical Power was coming to win it, and he actually headed him on the run-in. Slade Steele got in a wee bit tight to the final flight, lost momentum and lost ground. But yeah, exactly. After that, like when Rachel asked him to pick up, the way that he battled, and he didn't just battle and get back up, he went a length and a half clear by the time he got to the winning line. It was a striking performance, I thought, from a horse who, because the race was run at a good pace and he was up with the pace. The two horses who were in front of him, they failed to finish 8th and 10th. And all the horses who chased him home, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, they all came from either mid-division or worse. So to be up there in the van for that length of time, you can probably mark him up a little bit, even on the bare form of it, I think. And look, you know, I thought he was going to be going for the Gallagher as it became. But then obviously Ballyburn went there and he went there, probably as a consequence. But it didn't. I worried, would he have 2 mile pace? But Rachel Blackmore actually said, after she rode him at the Dublin Racing Festival against Ballyburn in the 2 mile race, she said before then she thought he was a 2.5 miler. He won the Navan Novices Hurdle over the Grade 2 race over 2.5 miles. He was that, and when he beat King of Kingsfield in the Maiden, he outstayed him over 2 miles. But she said when she rode him at Leopardstown in that 2 mile race, it was then she thought he had the sharpness and he had the pace for 2 miles, and yeah, he proved it.
What did you think?
He was a bit keen in the early stages as well, wasn't he? So it would have been interesting if they had gone up in trip, whether he'd still be keen. But obviously that mix of speed and stamina, I thought it was a really good race. I thought Asian Master was obviously ran really well, and the form of that maiden hurdle, which didn't look a lot at the time, obviously received a boost in the Gallaghers because Jimmy Desoy obviously outran odds of 80 to 1 in that. Yeah. So yeah, it's worth keeping an eye on some of those smaller maiden hurdles over in Ireland. Tully Hill, who I was keen on, kind of had no excuses, jumped a lot better, like jumped really, really well, and then just kind of emptied out. Telling the Name obviously took him on for the lead. I think Hill will obviously be better seen on better ground. Jack Kennedy, I bet he want that ride again on Firefox. Settled okay, and then just got stuck behind the retreating Tell the Name and kind of was just caught in a pocket. And I think he'll be some sight over fences next season.
I'd like to see Mystical Power over fences as well. There's something about him that strikes me. Like he might make a decent chaser.
There's a chance that he'd reverse the form or punch down on a bit better ground. I think they'd be quite close in the market.
And you'd imagine they'd want to challenge as late as possible in Mystical Power as well to utilise that turn of foot. Yeah,
I think he'll have to improve to reverse place and stuff.
I agree. I think Slade Steele was a dominant winner. But as everyone seems to have agreed on, avoiding Ballyburn seemed to be the thing. And Ballyburn, Steve, bolted up in the Gallaghers. I don't think it would have mattered who was up against him. He's just different class.
Yeah, everyone on the preview circuit, no one wanted to take him on and had Wise Guy fancies at big prices. Everyone was with him, and it was easy to see why. First 5 home for Willie Mullins kind of showed the dominance around it. He was the only one that wanted to take him on with his own horses. Looked keen again with his head carriage, but I don't think that is. I think he'd be happy at 2 miles. I think he'd be happy at 3 miles. I think he'd have won any of those novice hurdles at the festival. Patrick Mullins felt Atlantic didn't run to form, which might have accentuated the winning distance. So you can only kind of take that on what Patrick has said. Predator's Gold jumped poorly. He probably would prefer a flatter track going forward. But yeah, Ballyburn took it up at the second last. Paul had a look. There were no dangers, and away he went up the hill. Like, it's going to be really exciting to watch him progress over the next few seasons, and whatever Willie Mullins decides to do with it.
Whatever Willie Mullins decides to do. So he's getting quotes for all sorts of races. I imagine the 3 options for where he'll run in at the Cheltenham Festival next year. The 3, and I'm leaving out the Brown Advisory at this stage, but not completely.
Oh, I think he'll have a chance in the National Chase.
Well, quite possibly. Oh, don't mention that race. I can't believe you've already thrown that in the mix already. Champion Hurdle, Arkle, Turners. Right, that will be the 3. Which race do you think Ballyburn will run in at the festival
I think he could run the Champion Hurdle. I think that, look, who knows? We didn't know the day before where he was going, so how are we going to know 360 days out where he's going to go? Look, in a sense, that would be really exciting for me to go for the Champion Hurdle. And then, because we know he's a chaser in waiting, so it's just a case of how long are you going to wait. And if you wait long enough for him to contest the Champion Hurdle, that would be great. Like the time of the race as well, he was 0.36 seconds per furlong faster than Racing Post Par. I think he was 9.5 seconds faster than the other 2.5 mile race run on the day. And I watched that race from just before the final flight. And it was just when Paul Hanna gave him a squeeze just on the run to it. And he just, it was brilliant to see it. And then I know Atlantic made that mistake at the final flight as well, but just to see him take, you could see him, the injection of pace actually on the run to the final flight.
It's a thrilling sight watching Ballyburn, and it certainly excites us for what he can do. But it's all up in the air whether he stays over hurdles, goes over fences, and where he ends up at the festival next year. The Albert Bartlett produced an exciting finish. Not probably heartbreaking if you were a part of the team that involved with the Jukebox Man. I think they thought he was going to win. I think a lot of people thought he was going to win. But Stellar Story, in fairness to Stellar Story, that was a really game performance.
It was, yeah. Look, it was great. Great for Sam Ewing, his first Cheltenham Festival winner, Warren Ewing's son. And for Gordon Elliott had never won an Albert Bartlett hurdle before, which was, to me, was because that's the type of horse he has, and he's had so many horses run well in it, but he'd never won it before then, and gone over the last, I think the Jukebox Man was a 1.03 in running or thereabouts. But yeah, Stellar Story, he's a staying horse. That the form of that Grade 2 Navan Novices hurdle, he was in that as well. And he had the winner of the Martin Pipe behind him as well. He had the winner of the Supreme Novices in front of him, Slade Steele. So he didn't go in there without a chance. He was a big price, but he's a real staying horse. And Sam Ewing said just when he landed over the last, he could see that the leader was just kind of flagging a little bit, and that's when and like 6 strides from the line, he had about a length to make up. But and it was a thrilling finish. You have to feel for connections with the runner-up, obviously. Yeah. But no, big win for Sam Ewing and Gordon Elliott.
The only consolation, I suppose, for the runner-up is that he's obviously a very, very good horse, and that's quite an exciting prospect for next year. Yeah,
definitely. Obviously, reversed form of the Challow with Captain Teague and Johnny Hu as well. So. Yeah, no, he I do feel sorry for Keelan Woods. I thought he gave him a brilliant ride from the front, and at least Harry Redknapp obviously had a winner the day before. I thought it was interesting. Gordon Elliott afterwards said that he wasn't even supposed to run in the race. Stellar Story, he was supposed to be safe for Aintree, but obviously Croke Park had a little setback and missed the race. So I thought that was quite interesting. He's just talking to him about Stellar Story as kind of those big handicap chasers. So I don't think he thinks he's a sort of future Gold Cup winner, which might say a bit about the form. I'd forgive Gidley Park. That was his first time over 3 miles, was just too keen, and his jumping wasn't the best. I wouldn't give up on Gidley Park back in the field. But yeah, the Jukebox Man, I would probably be the one to take out of it, because he's a huge horse, and he will definitely go novice chase.
Yeah, I imagine there are a fair few from that race that will head over fences next season. Quite exciting lot, I believe. I'll stay with you, Steve, for the Triumph Hurdle, primarily because you've been touting this horse for a long time. Madgeborough was very impressive and looks like a superstar of the future.
Yeah, and I think Don's of the same opinion as me watching other shows. I couldn't believe his SP when it came up, how much it drifted. He's the most beautiful horse to look at in the parade ring. I said on our preview that he'd relish the stamina test of the new course in the Triumph Hurdle, and it was exactly that. Cargis obviously was a lot more experienced, had a lot more runs in France, and then obviously won the Spring Juvenile at the Dublin Racing Festival. But I think stamina was kind of what won Marshborough this race. They said that he would look like a 3-mile chaser going forward, and I think that's probably what has won him the race, is the stamina. It's going to be interesting what they do next year with him. Obviously, Willie Mullins took a conservative approach with the Triumph Hurdle winner last year, Lossiemouth. So, do they send him over fences and get the allowances like they did with Blood Destiny this year, or do they have a lighter campaign hurdling and save him? I'd imagine he'll go over fences, won't he?
I think so.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't. Just looking back, the last 5-year-old Arkle winner, as Voipur Estate is, who was in receipt of weight. There's no weight concession anymore. Yeah. The sliding scale runs out before you get to Cheltenham. And the last 5-year-old winner of the RSA Chase, or the Brad Advisory, was Star de Moyhazen in the same year. I think 2006, and he was getting, I think, a £10 allowance over the longer trip again.
So Rob Ogden had a great festival that year, didn't he?
He did. He really did. But yeah, like Madgeborough was, he was great, and it was stamina. Yeah, like coming down the hill or turning in, it did look like Cargesi had his measure, and she was very good. She quickened, but he outstayed her. Her jumping was very good as well. Again, the race IQ data tell you her jumping was seriously good. And maybe at Punchestown, a sharper track, she maybe could exact her revenge on him in the Champion 4-year-old hurdle there. But it's all about the future for Madgeborough, isn't it? I'd be surprised if he didn't go over fences next season, because that's what he's built for, that's what he's made for, and why not start now as opposed to waiting? It
was one of my favourite quotes of the week from Willie Mullins. He said when Madgeborough came into the yard, and again, it's an insight into how it works. He said, they said to me. So I really wanted to then follow up with
who are they?
Who are they? He said, when the horse came into the yard, they said to me, this is your Triumph Hurdle horse. And he said, I looked at him and I went, that's a Gold Cup horse. He doesn't look like a Triumph hurdle horse, which I thought the whole quote was really fascinating when he said they said to me as well. It's like, I'd love to know who makes
Who's
that
telling
they.
Willie Mullins how it is? Yeah,
That's who we should be. British Racing should find out who they are and get them to help us reverse the Willie Mullins domination.
Do you know what I think we need at the festival next year? A 5-year-old novice chase.
I think that's possible. I think they can arrange that.
We definitely need more races anyway.
All joking aside, you've got Marshborough who looks as if he wants a fence. Sergino is of the same sort of mould, and then you've got Caliph de Burley as well, who might be going novice chasing. So you could have some smart younger horses that go over the fences. Don't
even talk about it, Stu. Come on. Okay, the mare's novice, no Dysart Enos, heartbreaking for her fans. And Brighter Days Ahead travelled nicely, but just didn't pick up as well as Golden Ace. Fantastic performance. Great for Jeremy Scott, who taking handshakes in the winners' enclosure afterwards was certainly entertaining.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant, and she showed a turn of foot. Like, they went no pace in this race. The finishing speed percentage was 114.48. So they walked basically. And she had that, she's by Golden Horn, she's got that flat race pedigree, she had the pace and she had the speed, and it just played right into her hands. And Jack Kennedy's hand was kind of forced, or well, not that his hand was forced, he was caught
opposite,
between her. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like Brighter Days Ahead, they weren't going fast enough for her, he knew that, but yet when she didn't, like, she did lead all the way, and some of her, like, at a lesser grade, but she was just kind of, he couldn't go on with her. He had to sit in behind and suffer. And like Brighter Days Ahead, they've never, like Gordon Elliott and Jack Kennedy and the team, they've never tried to hide the regard in which they hold her. So she's a really exciting mare going forward. But no, brilliant for Jeremy Scott and the team. Lorcan Williams as well. I think it's the second Cheltenham Festival winner, isn't he? He won the National Hunt Chase in the COVID year when he could ride in it. But no, like she showed a turn of foot. And it may be that she might be a little bit underrated, that win, because they went such a slow pace. But she's obviously, I know she got beaten by Dazzardinos in the bumper, but she's a talented mare, and that pace, it'll be an asset no matter what the pace.
Yeah, and the way she's progressed through her short career of a hurdle so far has been terrific. But you messaged me straight after the race. The pace of the race was extraordinary, especially considering Brighter Days Ahead's previous form over further, and the fact that she looks like a stayer.
Yeah, and Jay de Grugy at the same time. She'd won over 2.5 miles and 2 mile 2. Like, they both had plenty of stamina. I just thought it was a bit of kind of cat and mouse, both looking at each other and forgetting about the faster horse in behind. I mean, the handicappers put her up £15 today, so she'd have been some handicap certainty, wouldn't she? And I do think it's worth touching on the £5 penalty. Like, there was a length and 3/4 at the finish, and actually, if you then take that, added an extra £5 worth of weight, would she have still won? I imagine she probably would have done with those tactics, because she sprinted clear. But I thought it was a bit of an unsatisfactory race form-wise. It's not one that you'd say, if you run the same race again tomorrow, I'd definitely back the winner.
The only thing I'd say about Golden Ace as well, I know that obviously a lot of people say Brighter Days Ahead, form, etc. But if you actually look through her pedigree, she's got loads of flat stamina. She comes from, I'm going to bore people here, but the Helena Springfield family, the spotted colours, some great horses over the years. But it's the stamina-laden side of that pedigree, or that family over the years. Obviously, she's by Golden Horn, so there is a lot of flat stamina in there. I wouldn't be entirely ruling out the fact she could be equally as good, if not better, over 2.5 miles over hurdle. So just something to bear in mind. Exciting for Jeremy Scott. Well done for that team. The novice chasers, let's spin through these. Arkle, Gaelic Warrior. If anyone told me that Gaelic Warrior was going to win quite like that, I would have found it hard to believe, Steve.
He was just absolutely brilliant.
He was.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, they said obviously they'd put a hood on him, and the first time hoods was obviously a kind of a talking point around the Willie Mullins horses for the week. But they said that they'd schooled him in a hood and he jumped straight. And you kind of thought, yeah, okay, we'll see what he does on the racecourse. And he was just brilliant. Yeah. I thought this was, him and Ballyburn, I thought were arguably the two performances of the week that went, wow. They were absolutely brilliant. I mean, it was, slightly, some of the beaten horses, like Quilixios blew the start and was slightly hampered and just never really got into a rhythm. Matata set a strong pace. Hunter's Yarn couldn't go that pace, was flat out the whole way. Will surely go up in trip. Elite Tom didn't jump well at all throughout the whole race. I don't know whether it's a Cheltenham thing with him or just a faster pace, but his jumping went completely wrong. Founder 50, I thought, ran a great race. It was kind of at the stage of the week where all of Gordon Elliott's were running well without winning.
Yeah.
And I thought, he's going to be interesting going forward. And he's kind of the solid horse that you could work all your figures around. You know that he's going to run your race, and that's kind of just elevated the performance of Gaelic Warrior even higher for me.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you now, because I didn't do it earlier, but I thought I'd save it for this moment, to ask about the Champion Chase next year. El Fabiolo 2-1 favourite, Gaelic Warrior 4-1, Energument 8-1, so Willie Mullins is the top three, John Bond 10s, Marine National 14s, Dino Blue 25s, Captain Guinness 33s, Founder 50 66-1, Edward Stone 100-1. I actually quite like Founder 50 each way, because the Champion Chase is often a race that cuts up, becomes decimated for whatever reason through the season. I thought Founder 50 is just such a solid yardstick. Generally always finds one or two too good, but how would you play the Champion Chase?
It's interesting, isn't it? Like Gaelic Warrior, if he turns up like he turned up at the Dublin Racing Festival, obviously he's volatile. Like he can't obviously do that. And just in the back of my mind is that performance. But like Steve, I was against him at Cheltenham. I thought he'll go to his right. He'll give away, especially on that course. He'll give away too much ground going 2 miles. But he hardly went right. He went a little bit to his right, but no more than any. It wasn't accentuated to any degree. And he was brilliant. He was strong in the finish. His closing 2 furlongs were fast. And he was brilliant. And he was on his toes a wee bit in the paddock beforehand, but that's him. He didn't boil over. You know what I mean? If he wasn't on his toes, you'd nearly be worried about him at this point. Like he wasn't anything like he was at Leopardstown, let's say. But Marine National 14-1. Yeah, I'm a big Marine National fan, and hopefully...
you think he would have won the Arkle?
The Marine National that was in the Supreme, that was his hurdle last year. I think it would have been a hell of a race.
Yeah. I mean, the connections couldn't envisage defeat for him at Cheltenham this year, even though he obviously got beaten last time out. Another very impressive performance was from Grey Dawning. Dan Skelton is adamant that he is the real deal. He has, in all honesty, looked very professional, very solid, and reversed the form at Ginny's Destiny. Yeah,
which wasn't entirely a surprise. The market was strange because Ante-Post, Ginny's Destiny was favourite and Grey Dawning was second favourite. And then at some point, I think after declarations, or maybe just before declarations, they closed up, and then Grey Dawning was favourite. And you could see why he made that bad mistake at the second last fence at Cheltenham the last time. And I thought did well to get to within 3 parts of a length of Ginny's Destiny. He was £3 better off, I think, this time. And yeah, it was a great race to watch, wasn't it, between the two of them? Like Jella ran a massive race as well. He was the only other one who was able to go with them, and maybe him back on a flat track on soft ground again, he could step forward from that. But it was great to watch it, and you always kind of felt that Grey Dawning was getting the better. Even before Ginny's Destiny made that slight mistake on the second last, that kind of was the final nail. But I think Grey Dawning was getting the upper hand.
Yeah, and going back to the point you made about Harry Skelton, he sat on the coattail, didn't let Harry Cobden get away, because obviously Ginny's Destiny's had things his own way in those 3 wins at Cheltenham this season, but he sat close enough to know that when the time comes, I'm close enough to take you.
Yeah, and obviously Ginny's Destiny made that slight mistake at the second last, but I don't think it would have finished. I think Grey Dawning's always going to idle at the finish, but he absolutely winged the last 2, and then just kind of idled at the finish. Like he's going to be really interesting for those 3-mile Grade 1 chases in the UK. Like the Betfair Chase looks absolutely made for him.
And what race do you think he could end up at the festival next? Do you think he could possibly stretch out Gold Cup?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right. Brand Advisory, Factor File, I thought was just brilliant. I loved him. I love him. But kudos to you both, because Monty Star, you put him up at 50-1 at the start of last season, or the start of this season, Steve. Each way player, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yes, you had. So well done. Ran a fine race in defeat. But what was your opinion on how good Factor File was?
I was worried for him in the early stages. I thought he was a bit keen. His jumping wasn't the best early on. And then, round in the turn, Rachel obviously had Monty Star on the outside, and I thought, all right, here we go. And then suddenly Factor File nipped up the inside, and away he was gone. I thought he was really strong at the finish. I wasn't sure that he'd stay, but he looks as if he's going to relish the Gold Cup trip in the future. He did jump slightly right-handed. Like I made the case beforehand that he jumped right at the Dublin Racing Festival, but kind of gave him the excuse that was behind Gaelic Warrior, and you often follow the horse in front. But it is definitely kind of a quirk with him that he does jump right-handed, which is something to bear in mind. I thought it was an interesting race tactics-wise. Everyone kind of thought that Stay Away Faye would set a strong pace, but he just wasn't himself. I don't think he scoped clean and lost a shoe. So I don't think that's his running. And as a result, it was a slower pace than what we actually thought, which will have hindered Monty Starr, because I think he's a proper stayer. I wouldn't put anyone off him for the Gold Cup. He's 20-1 with Bet365 for next year. Obviously, Minella Indo finished second in this race and then won the Gold Cup the next year. And he's really lightly raced as well. I think he had 3 runs over hurdles, 2 runs over fences before this. So, yeah, he could be the one open to progression. But I can see why everyone fancies Fatifal for the Gold Cup.
Can definitely see Monty Starr continuing to improve. He's got that profile physically as well. You think that with his size and scope, there's more improvement. But what were your thoughts on Fatifal?
Yeah, very similar to Steve's actually. I like in the early part of the race, I wasn't worried. I was hopeful for Monty Starr, because Fatifal, he just wasn't in a rhythm. He was a little bit out to his right. His first 3-4 fences, he just didn't jump them fluently. Now, in fairness to him, he got into his rhythm and he was very, very good. He flowed through the latter stages of the race, which is obviously the important part of the race. But no, I thought Monty Starr was going to, and look, he ran a massive race, but look, Fatifal could be anything, and he stayed the trip at the pace. It wasn't a stamina testing pace over the trip. I thought the finishing speed percentage was 110% or thereabouts. So that tells you that it wasn't a really strong early pace. As Steve's saying, they were probably waiting for Stay Away Fate to make the pace, and he didn't. And a more thorough stamina test you would think will suit Monty Starr more. So I wouldn't give up on the possibility that he might exact his revenge at some point in a race that tests stamina more, because he's at half of the Tamana League. He's going to stay. He's shaped like a stayer all the time, even in his beginner's chase when he finished third behind Corbett's Cross. That was a run that suggested he was going to stay, and then he was very good in beating 3-card Bragg. And, you know, Steve said he's only had 3 runs over fences. So, and he's likely raced over hurdles as well. So I think there's more to come from Monty Starr. Look, but there's more to come from Fatifal as well. He's a fairly lightly raced horse too.
I feel a little bit intimidated by 2 Monty Starr fans, because I'm a massive Fatifal fan. I've watched back that race a few times now. The other thing that really impresses me is that when Mark Walsh asks him to quicken up between the last 2 going down to the last fence, and he picks up, he goes away from Monty Starr, and then he pings the last, and then he goes about 3 lengths clear, and just as they get, I think there's a Weatherby's sign on the, and his ears go from sort of flat back, and he sort of goes, wow, what's going on here? He's got loads in hand, and I hear your point, because that's, at the back of my mind, the Gold Cup is obviously still a question mark, the trip, because he's clearly got a lot of pace, but the reassurance is that I don't think we've got anywhere near the depth of his ability, and we're going to talk about races for next year and what we like and what we don't like, etc.
Can I just say, I thought that's a brilliant ride by Mark Welsh as well. Obviously, at that time, Willie Mullins was flying, all the odds-on favourites were winning, but obviously Mark Welsh hadn't ridden those. Townend had, and he'd obviously got beaten on Mystical Power. So there was a lot of pressure on that ride by Mark Welsh, and he was perfectly happy to settle off in the rear and get his horse into a rhythm. So I just thought I'd give him a shout.
Okay.
Yeah, he's so calm, isn't he?
Yeah,
Like his whole demeanour, that's the way he rides, just cool.
With the same colours in the National Hunt Chase, carried to victory, this time by Derek O'Connor, who had a very good week as well. And Corbett's Cross absolutely bolted up. I mean, there's no doubt that Broadway Boy would have bolted up had he run in the race, but sadly he wasn't even going to run in it. But Corbett's Cross did, in all honesty, the manner of that victory was something. I mean, he's a serious horse, regardless of.
I think so. Yeah. No, I was worried about his stamina going into the race, but and again, they didn't go a great pace in the race. But his final furlong, I think, was the fastest final furlong in a chase for the week. Incredible. At the end of 3 miles 6 furlongs. Like it's obviously testament to the talent of the horse, but maybe the pace as well. But like Derek O'Connor, he did ask him to pick up. But again, you could see him picking up the hill. He really sprinted up the hill. And yeah, like Derek O'Connor had a great festival. He rode the two of the 3 amateur riders winners and was second in the other, beating 3 parts of a length in the Fox Hunters. But no, Corbett's Cross, like I've had to revise my opinion of him, because I thought there was a chance. I thought he was vulnerable at the trip, because
So did I.
Did you? Yeah, because of the way that in the Albert Bartlett hurdle, I didn't think he was closing on Stay Away Faye going to the final flight last year, and I just thought 3 miles 6 is strongly run. I might just find him out, but not a bit of it. No, he's very good, and I think he has to go into the Gold Cup picture as well for next year.
All right, your thoughts on
I was the same. I was a doubter before the race. Emmett Mullins does campaign his horses slightly strangely with trips and everything that way, but you've just got to trust him, really. I think the winning distance is probably accentuated by Embassy Gardens. Obviously made a bad mistake at the second last and finished with an irregular heartbeat, so that probably did. But with Donn obviously listing off the finishing sectionals and everything, then fair play. He did absolutely sprint up the hill. Yeah, it'd have been in the first 3 in the Brown Advisory, wouldn't he?
I'm
So
certain of that, yeah.
based on obviously the form with Monty Star at Fairy House earlier, yeah, just a shame we didn't see it.
No, there are a lot of good horses set to go into open company next year. It could be very exciting. Galopin Des Champs versus a whole host of new challenges in 2024-25. Obviously, lots of other races for the festival, so I'm going to open the floor up here now. Don, obviously there's all those handicaps, the bumper, the Hunter Chase, etc. Feel free to take us wherever you want in your review.
Paul Townend's riding absurd in the county hurdle. Like, what a ride. I know he's a 110 rated horse on the flat, so he had the class. He's an Ebor winner, but they went no pace. He just sat in behind. He said afterwards the ground was against him, so there was no pressure on him. He could give it a ride like that, but he was second last turn it home in the county hurdle. Again, finishing sweep percentage 112%. So again, no pace at all. But he just sluiced through them. He didn't take the easy option of going away from the stands rail where there was no congestion. He just moved up in behind him.
Going to go through you, yeah.
Yeah, and look, you don't know what he's absurd. You don't know how he's going to be as a hurdler. Like, he's a very classy horse off the flat. Like, I think he's going to go back on the flat. I think Willie was saying go back to the Melbourne Cup. So yeah, he's interesting. I know the way you're thinking. Got down to a mark of 145 for the Kim Muir, and one like a horse is rated a wee bit higher.
After the first fence, I was slightly concerned what was going on.
Yeah. No, exactly, and even more than I wasn't that worried about Factifile, but definitely worried about him because it was a funny start because they lined up. Yeah. He had a lovely position. Then they had to go back, and you thought he's going to lose his position, but actually he got an even better start because he had momentum up going forward on the inside. But suddenly he was way back in the field. But that's Derek O'Connor for you. Like, he just bided his time, no panic here. Trusted the horse that he was on and just moved through his field and won impressively. So he's a really exciting horse going forward as well. You know, who knows what he's going to do next year, please God. And look, Lark in the Morning was very good. He was weak in the market beforehand. He was, massive for 9-1. I think he was returned on the day.
Not a non-runner on the day for once.
No, just broke the trend. 3 non-runners in a row.
4th time lucky.
Yeah. But again, he could be, he's obviously a juvenile, but he's obviously better than a 120-odd rated horse. So, and they thought the ground was against him, so that maybe gives him another kind of dimension. He handles soft ground as well.
Yeah, okay. What else would you like to mention from the festival?
Chianti Classico was a good winner of the Ultima.
I mean, did he ever look in any danger through that race, at Chianti Classico?
No, not at all.
It's unbelievable, a really dominant performance.
Yeah, and we were all keen on our live show on him. I actually didn't tip him on the day because of the ground. I thought the ground was a slight question mark for him because he showed all his form on kind of better ground.
In fact, Kim Bailey said that as well, and he actually half fancied Trelawney.
Yeah,
a little bit more
on the ground. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a big call from David Bass, who obviously would have had the choice. Harry Cobb obviously rode Trelawney, and they came down early on. But yeah, I just thought that was brilliant. In the Boodles, you've touched on Lark in the Morning. I think the interesting thing of this, obviously the angle with, I've been a big fan of Mighty Bandit, obviously was really impressive on his debut. He had Lark in the Morning and Harsh, so they finished 1st and 4th there. So Mighty Bandit kind of was a bit too keen in the Triumph, obviously changed the stables and all that sort of stuff to go on. So Mighty Bandit might not be one to give up with for Warren Greatrex next season, based on obviously the form boosted in the Boodles. We'll have to touch on Lagadan, miraculously sprung back to obviously form at the festival. Won by 3.5 lengths.
Unreal.
Unbelievable.
Well, the handicapper put him up £6 last year. This morning has put him up 10. So yeah, we'll see what mark he gets down to for next year. See how he'll suffer.
Just counting how many runs he'll need.
12 months.
And then obviously the stable one with Unexpected Party in the Grand Annual, he's had 8 as well. So the handicapper's going a bit more harsh this year. So we'll see how quickly he'll drop those 2 throughout the season next year. Shake 'em up.
Can I just jump in here?
Yeah.
Because obviously we smirk and we say we've got to touch on these things, and yes, we do. There is a lot of debate going on in racing about, or certainly on social media, etc., about the merits of what they have done and the way the horses got back to that handicap mark. So was it 141 that he won the Coral Cup off, and then he's come back to 141. He went off 66-1 for his most recent run prior to Cheltenham. So it's obvious that he had no chance in those races. So a lot of people are talking about that and the merits of of what they've done in handicapping and back to that. Do you have any strong views on the way, how it's done, what the system involved? I mean, it is a system that we have operated on now for centuries.
It is the handicapping system, isn't it? There's two different ways you can do it. You can go what they did with Persad, who was chucked in on his flat mark, and I know the way you're thinking has been ridden. How can I put it? With another view in mind behind the likes of Gaelic Warrior. So you've got unexposed novices coming through, or you can chuck them out the back and get dropped in the handicap, which is the way that the Skeletons have done. So as long as you're going to play with these handicaps, I've seen a lot after this festival around, we need to change this race to a handicap and this race to a handicap. If you're going to do that, you're just going to get connections playing games throughout the whole year in order to get there. I don't think that's the way to do it. I don't really have the answer, but
unless you make all handicaps qualifiers and horses have got to achieve a stage.
Well, finishing the first four in the qualifier, that's run at market rate. They'll have to set a punch during the year.
How do you manage it?
I don't know the answer. It's one thing having a horse who's progressing through the ranks and training them to peak on the day at a handicap, but getting a horse back down a handicap and back up again. Yeah, I think it's odd.
All right.
Can I just say, around the handicapping system, I thought it was great that Shake 'em Up Harry won, because he won on New Year's Day by 7.5 lengths. The handicapper raised him £3, which I thought was lenient. I said it on our preview show. I thought it was a brilliant ride for Ben Jones. You had the likes of Ben Jones, Sam Ewan, obviously having their first winners at the festival, who I thought were great. Two big leaps late on, idled at the finish. Handicapper's only given him 6. I just thought it was really nice for a 10-year-old who's won a race this season to win a big handicap and prove that you can do it that way.
Yeah, lots of notable efforts from all of those horses. Interestingly enough, the other thing I was noting was the first 3 home in the champion bumper. Jasmine Devoe, Jalon Dudary and Romeo Kulo. They're top 3 in the market for the Supreme, Albert Bartlett, Gallagher's. I mean, no one's thinking outside the box with that. So that's how it is. Well done to Connections of Cine Nomine as well. I thought that was an excellent ride from John Dawson.
It was a great ride because the Emmett Mullins horse, it's on the line. He needs competition, and he switched him outside. Now he's not going to get up the inside of Derek O'Connor anyway, so he had to switch, but he switched him out
Wide
and out
enough.
again. Yeah, and then it's on the line. Probably didn't see him until it was too late, but now, super right.
Okay, last chance to mention anything that made your notebooks from Cheltenham before we close the review off. Anything?
Just to note, Willie Mullins doesn't know how good his bumper horses are. You then have a look at the Sounds Victorious and Fishery Lane, both outran odds of 66 to 1 to finish 4th and 5th. Like, fair play to Patrick Mullins. He had 7, 8, 9 in the race, and he's chosen correctly. Fair play. But
I'm assuming they told Patrick that as well.
Who are they?
I've got to find out. I've got to find that out.
And obviously, at that point, Patrick Mullins rode the 100th Willie Mullins Festival win, which was just superb. It was. Everyone thought it was going to be El Fabiolo, but for Patrick to ride it was a nice story.
A poignant moment for the Mullins family, especially having lost the matriarch and a race that celebrated Maureen Mullins earlier in the week as well.
In the National Chase, and for Emmett to win it as well.
Emmett won it,
her grandson. Gavin Cromwell as well. He had 2 winners. He had Florian Porter ran really well as well. He didn't have a winner at the festival last year, but he kept on having winners at Cheltenham during the season. So it was good to see him back in the winners' enclosure as well.
Okay. Well, that brings to a conclusion our review of the Cheltenham Festival. Stand by, because the 3 of us have put our heads together and at least one selection from each, if not more, for the Cheltenham Festival in 2024-25 coming up next. But before we look ahead to the 2025 Cheltenham Festival, just to let you know, a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It's available every weekend with prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as jackpot for all 6. T's and C's apply. Obviously, Bet365 already have markets up for next year's Cheltenham Festival. I said the 2024-25, obviously it's the 25 Cheltenham Festival that we are going to focus on now with some selections. Who would like to go first for this particular segment? Donn, you're the guest.
If you go to Steve first, though, I'll just copy him like I did in Monty Star.
Venice is not a bad idea. He hasn't done too badly this past season. Kick us off, Steve.
So I won't give my one yet. I'll just touch on a couple. Obviously, Don's a big fan of Marie Nationale. Kind of same connections have William Money, who I think is really interesting for next year. He's a standout 25-1 with Bet365 for the Supreme next season. Barry Connell obviously loves bigging up his horses. Everything is always going to win. But yeah, Marie Nationale obviously won the Supreme a couple of seasons ago. He won a really strong-looking winners' race at Naas a month ago. All 5 of them had all won previously. There's no doubt that he's going to head to Punchestown and we'll face off against the likes of Jasmine DeVoe and Romeo Coolio. So it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on in there.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously the champion bumper horses are always going to dominate the market for the Supreme. I just thought he was quite overpriced at 25-1 for the Supreme next year. I touched on Firefox earlier. I think he's going to make a really nice horse for the Arkle next year. I'd be a cynic and think Lossiemouth actually is fair value at 5-2 for the Mare's Hurdle. And then we also touched on Monty Star, so I won't go everything again. Obviously finished second in the Brown Advisory. Similar sort of thing to Manila Indo. He went on to win the Gold Cup the next year in his 20-1. But I'll keep back my one bet.
Your main one. Okay, so I've got William Money for the Supreme, Firefox for the Arkle, Lossiemouth for the Mares, 5-2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The others, Arkle 14-1 for Firefox, 25-1 William Money for the Supreme. Let's stay with that for the moment. Don, what have you got for us for 2025?
Ballyburn for the Champion Hurdle, as I mentioned earlier on, Monty Star for the Gold Cup or the Champion Hurdle or whatever race he runs it. In the more immediate term, I thought Capodanno ran a really good Grand National trial in the Ryanair Chase, staying on really well. I know everyone was talking about Korak Rambler as a Grand National trial. I think the handicapper raised him £3, so he's going to be £3 well in. Yeah. But I thought Capodanno, he ran really well in the National last year off uninterrupted preparation. He jumped the fence as well. I know he was pulled up in the end, but it was a much better run than the form suggests. I think Cargese might exact her revenge on Majborough in the Punchestown 4-year-old hurdle. I think the track will suit her better. Her jumping will be a big asset there as well. Thought Asian Master be an interesting chaser for next season. The form, as Steve touched on, the form of his run with Jimmy Desoy, that's worked out well. He beat Better Days Ahead as well, the Martin Pipe hurdle winner, and it just was a wee bit wide in the Supreme Novices hurdle. His rider couldn't claim his £7 in the Grade 1. Thomas Costello gave him a good ride and gets on really well with the horse, but he was bought as a hunter chaser, and obviously he's way better than that. So going back over fences now next season, he could be interesting. I'd be interested to see Fast or Slow taking on Galopin Des Champs at Punchestown again, see how that works out. And so the Ante-Post horse for next year, will I just roll on into it?
Let's roll up. Let's have that. Don's Ante-Post horse for next year.
Slade Steel in the Arkle.
Slade Steel in the Arkle.
You look down the Arkle market or the Arkle potentials, Ballyburn, possibly Champion Hurdle, Sergino and Majborough, 5-year-olds. I just think it's hard for 5-year-olds to win an Arkle. Then you've got Firefox, Mystical Power maybe, but what he did in the Supreme Novices Hurdle, to me he was always a staying horse when he won the Grade 2 Navan Novices Hurdle. That's a 2.5 mile race, and it's normally for stamina. Then he ran, as we mentioned earlier on, he ran in the Tadas Ireland Novices Hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival, and he had that pace. He got to within 7 lengths of Ballyburn. To win an Arkle, you need stamina as well as pace. He's got that pace. He showed it in the Supreme Novices Hurdle. Cheltenham Festival winning form, obviously that's massive. The way he came up the hill, really important and really strongly. And the fact that he's trained by Henry de Bromhead, he'll almost certainly be a better chaser than hurdler. And he's a young horse who, we don't know what he's going to do. Don't even know if he's going to go over fences next season, but I assume he will. And Brian Atchison did seem to intimate as much that's what he wants to do. And if that's what he wants to do, I'm sure that's what Henry de Bromhead wants to do. So that's probably what he'll go. So where he'll go. So he's about a 10 or 12-1 shot, I think, for the Arkle.
8-1 with Bet365.
Yeah.
Slade Steel for the Arkle. He's
Arkle.
going down. What are we going to do? Are we going to do a patent? Yeah. Let's do that. What's yours, Steve?
So mine's going to be Brave Man's Game for the Ryanair Chase. I think Paul Nicholls will have finally watched what Dan Skelton did with Protektorat and go, actually, we've now been beaten in 2 Gold Cups.
Big price.
He is a big price. He's 25-1 with Bet365. Now, Harry Cobden immediately afterwards said, I think cheap pieces will help him. And the fact that they're now talking about going to the Oaksey Chase, either instead of Aintree or after Aintree, which is obviously 2 miles, 6.5 furlongs, just makes me think in the back of my head that they finally might acknowledge the fact that he's not the strongest stayer over 3 miles, further than 3 miles. I don't think he's had the best campaign this year. I think it's been a bit of a mess, to be perfectly honest. And I think if they target it from a long way out, have two main targets for the season of the King George, which I still think will be okay, 3 miles at Kempton, and the Ryanair Chase, I don't think you'll go too wrong.
Funny enough, before racing on Friday, spoke to Brian Drew, his owner, about the Gold Cup, and he was saying ground's obviously gone against him, and then obviously the point that I'd made a number of times about his stamina and where he checks out after 6 minutes of a race, etc. He said he looked at it and he totally agreed. And before the Gold Cup on Friday, he was saying next year probably the Ryanair Chase would be the race for him.
Because he made a big move around the outside. He
got
into prominent and then again up the hill. And I don't think it's a Cheltenham thing. Like you don't finish second in a Gold Cup behind Galopin Des Champs, jump in the second last and the last together if you don't handle Cheltenham. I just think it will be in the back of his head now that I think Skelton's got one over on me, especially if he wins the championship afterwards.
Exactly. Well, and how much better do you think Paul Nicholls thinks that Brave Man's Game is than Ginny's Destiny?
Yeah.
So, and Ginny's Destiny is the shortest price horse he's got in mind for the Ryanair Chase, on the betting for the Ryanair Chase. Mine is an obvious one, but I do think that he is potentially a superstar, and that's Factor File in the Gold Cup. I think he's 4-1. I just don't think we know how good he is anyway. I mean, even though he's already cruised through his novice season, obviously he got beaten first time up, but so many of William Mullins' good horses got beaten first time up, and since then it's just been every performance has just left you thinking, what can he be still? And that's where we're still at with him. He's 4-1 for the Gold Cup, but also going back to Steve's point, that actually he does jump a little bit right-handed, which I don't think is too bad at the moment. I'm not worried about it. But going to Kempton for the King George, he's 7-1 for the King George next season. I wouldn't be scared of Il Francais or whoever turns up for that. I think you're talking about a horse that could be elevated to something very, very special. So those are the 3 horses we're going for. Just to reiterate, Don, Slade Steel, the Arkle, 8-1. Steve, Brave Man's Game, Ryanair, 25-1, and Factor File, shortest of the lot, 4-1 for the Gold Cup. And obviously we'll have to take down Galopin Des Champs, but bring it on. Bring it on. That
is nice, though, the fact that his JP will be ridden by Mark Walsh. They will clash throughout the year as well. It's not like it's a Rich Rishi horse with Ronnie Bartlett. Like you'll get them taking on each other. Yeah, which will be great. Clashes. You have to turn up to win these races. Okay. Final thoughts on Cheltenham. Give me a closing sentiment that you think sums it up for you this year.
I remember Alistair Down writing a piece in the Racing Post saying, people say that there are 361 days in the year, and then there's a Cheltenham Festival, but he says, no, there are 4 days in the year. There are 361 others. Look, it's got its flaws, but for me, Cheltenham was a really good festival. Some, as we've discussed, some top-class performances. And you, Steve? Yeah, share the sentiment. You're never going to have a bad Cheltenham Festival. You're always going to have talking points, and you're always going to have some negatives come out of it. But to see performances like Gaelic Warrior and Ballyburn, as well as the champions of State Man and Galopin Des Champs, you can't have a bad Cheltenham Festival. Well, I have to say, it's been a lot of fun working with all of you leading up to the Cheltenham Festival, all the chats that we've had since before Christmas all the way through to the festival. Some we've got right, some we've got very badly wrong. Some didn't even blooming turn up. But at least we have lots of memories to talk about again for years to come from the Cheltenham Festival. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thank you very much to Steve, who's been alongside me all the way through the build-up, and Don, who's been a sporadic guest. But thanks, Rishi. It's been brilliant having you on board and bringing all the different angles and thoughts and analysis that you have. As always, if you've liked what you've heard or watched in this or any of our previous episodes, leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. We have enjoyed engaging with you on that. We're going to take a very short break from Racing Weekly, but we will be back to preview the Grand National meeting, obviously at Aintree in April, in the company of Hayley Moore. But for now, from the Racing Weekly team, bye-bye.